addressed the United Nations General Assembly today in New York. And while his fiery speech made headlines, it might have been his meetings on the sidelines that proved to be important. President Trump shifting his tone on Ukraine, saying it can win back all the territory it lost to Russia. So the tone has definitely shifted. For more on the ongoing war and the United States' position on all things of this war in Ukraine, we're joined now by Peter Doran, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. And Peter, what was your reaction to President Trump really changing the view of this war on the U.S. position when it comes to Russia and Ukraine?
Well, Mike, what a difference a day makes. Go back 24 hours, and I don't think there were many world leaders who anticipated that President Trump would reverse his position in such a positive way. Let's recall that he has now said not only does he think Ukraine can win this war by taking back territory, he personally congratulated President Zelensky, saw him as a strong figure, and he's even declared his support for NATO to shoot down Russia's attempts to expand its conflict into NATO. It's enough to blow your hair back. We often talk about historic days at the UN. Well, Mike, this was one of them.
Yeah, it totally was. And I mean, think about it. Earlier this year, we had President Trump and the vice president really laying in to Zelensky and again, talking about that all in the Oval Office. And now everything has changed. Is this more because do you feel that President Trump is getting just really upset with President Putin and how he feels now that it doesn't look like he wants an end to it, President Putin?
Well, it's always a very dangerous position to be in if you're a world leader, to be on the wrong side of President Trump. And for many months, Vladimir Putin perhaps thought that he could continue to tap President Trump along, to string him along, to promise him a lot of happy talk, and turn right around and attack Ukrainian cities, attack Ukrainian civilians. And I think President Trump has simply said, Vladimir, enough is enough. It is time to end this war, and we're going to support Ukraine in a way that President Trump has never stated before.
And let's also talk about the change really in escalation and also putting maximum pressure on Russia right now by also calling on the NATO allies and other European countries to talk about the airspace if it's violated by Russia to shoot down Russian aircraft.
That's right. So let's recall for a little bit more than 10 days at this point, we have seen America's allies like Poland, like Estonia, raising the alarm at the highest international levels about Russia's incursions into their airspace. We saw this at NATO. We saw this at the United Nations over the last 48 hours. And what is really significant about President Trump's turnaround here is that President Trump has said, you know what? It is time for NATO to push back. If NATO shoots down Russian drones or, yes, even Russian fighter aircraft, I would support that. This was a major news-making event today. I don't think many people were expecting it, and it is a positive development for our allies who have been warning that Vladimir Putin will keep pushing until he finds steel. And what President Trump has said today is that he's going to show what real resolve and real commitment to our allies looks like. This is a very positive development.
And also some of the other European countries really coming together in support of President Trump's statements. The Polish foreign minister responded to President Trump's statement by posting, "Roger that" on X. Could we actually see increased military action from some NATO countries when it comes to Russia?
Well, most importantly, that message came from Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski, as you rightly mentioned. Earlier this week, Radoslaw Sikorski made a historic address to the United Nations, and he declared to Vladimir Putin in no confusing terms, Poland will no longer put up with this, and we are warning you Moscow, do not make the catastrophic mistake of testing us again because we will shoot down your aircraft. It was a mic drop moment at the UN if there has ever been one. And so to hear Foreign Minister Sikorsky now responding publicly, Roger that. This shows that our allies have heard the message and are responding to President Trump's leadership.
And Peter, how will these tactics change with okay, we're in the fall now, going into the winter in a couple of months as the war continues to rage on? How will this change maybe the way this war is really handled and happening right now?
Well, first and foremost, I think everyone needs to be prepared for Vladimir Putin actually test what he has heard today. That means Vladimir Putin very likely would try to invade NATO airspace with drones or even armed fighter aircraft. And in that event, I certainly believe our frontline allies will shoot back. Now, we have a precedent for that before, and it did not result in World War III. Back 10 years ago to 2015, our other NATO ally, Turkey, did just that. Russia sent a fighter into their airspace. They said, turn around. The pilot didn't, and they shot him out of the sky. And guess what happened? Nothing. Russia did not escalate. This is a great example of how Russia will push until it sees real strength and resolve. And so going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a probe by Putin just to see how serious NATO is. And at that point, I do not expect the situation to escalate. On the contrary, I see Russia de-escalating its aggressive maneuvers.
Peter, that's such a good insight there, because when you look at just in the years past about how close Russia always tries to get to our aircraft or other NATO aircraft, they always just want to teeter right there on the edge of hitting, but then they seem to always back out.
Vladimir Putin loves to test and ask the question, where is the line? Where is the line at which point America and its allies will say, no, you shall not go any further than that. And we have seen that not only, as I said, with Turkey, but also with the United States. We know that Russia sends its own military aircraft close to our airspace, testing us. These are very dangerous maneuvers. But again, Vladimir Putin likes to push where there's mush. And once he finds something rock solid, he stops. That's what I expect to see going forward.
Yeah, that's great insight there as well, because when you think about it too, is Putin ready for the lion's roar, which would be our roar coming back at him? Or do you think he would just immediately try to de-escalate it? Because it doesn't seem like he is well equipped, his continuing strength there to fight back in ways that we could fight back.
Well, that's right. And we heard that directly from President Trump today. He said very clearly, I don't think Russia is a paper tiger. I think they're rightfully so. I think their economy is actually on the back foot. I don't think Vladimir has the ability to continue to wage this war at its current pace. And so by also threatening not just military action on the part of NATO, but also in support of our allies, but also signaling that President Trump would be willing to add additional heavy-hitting sanctions on Russia, shutting off Putin's pipeline of oil money he uses to fund his war against Ukraine. Well, I think President Trump is about to hit him with a pincer move. And Vladimir Putin, if anyone is nervous in the world right now, it's Vladimir Putin, because he's poked the bear in Donald Trump, and he's about to find out you shouldn't do that.
There we go. Peter, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. Great insight, as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You take care. All right, everyone. We'll take a 2-minute break and be back with more in moments on Live Now.